Morning. My cat just decided to uh, do a protest poop. The bed that I bought him. So sorry about that, people.
At least
How's
it's
it
on
going? Good
its bed.
morning. It is Sunday Trialoge. We're back again. Like and share the stream, everybody. I'm joined by my co-hosts Ricardo and Ethan Indigo. How are you guys doing?
Good
Let's
morning.
go with you, Ricardo. What are you working on?
So yesterday I was
You're
in
muted.
the. I am.
I can hear him.
I'm not muted.
Maybe it's me.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Audio.
Okay, I'll keep talking until he hears me. So yesterday I was in the Bald Eagle event, uh, streaming live from a table for I don't know 2 or 3 hours, talking to people about copper, which was interesting because there's lots of people that know little tiny itsy bits, and everybody contributes with a little thing. So it was interesting. Um,
Might you make a trip there, Ricardo? Now that you're in North America, it's not even that far necessarily.
to go where? Sorry.
To go to Michigan, where isn't this? Sorry, I thought you were talking about Michigan specifically.
I don't think this was in Michigan. The
Oh,
name
okay.
is kind of weird. That's why I didn't memorize it.
Well, anyway, would you consider going there where the source as
I hope I go and live there.
yeah.
So
Cool.
so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And apart from that, is just we are planning. We are not planning. We are going forward. I was told yesterday it's already going forward. The second phase of testing of the artifacts. They've chosen another 3 artifacts. Unfortunately, it's not the artifacts that I would like to be tested, but it's still experience and we'll still learn from it. Uh, Academics will be able to say again, oh, there is no provenance or there's no provenience, so it means nothing. Well, it means something because, like the last testing, even the top person on the university lab, I don't know if it was Caltech or Lully University. I don't know which one of them because I'm separated from that sector. But she, when she looked at the X, she said, "I have no doubt this is a Bell Beaker piece from the old world, right? But there is no provenance and no preference, so it's just word of mouth. We can never go to a paper. So I think now it's going to have a little bit more of the same, but I think it's positive because we learn about the samples that we are taking. It's a huge effort that I hope in the future we can create a crowdfunding. How is it called? Crowdfunding.
That's great. I think so.
Because these 3 or 4 pieces will cost $10,000. They already gathered the money, but it's extremely expensive to do just a time. It's 8 milligrams that it has to be drilled from these pieces, right, from the interior of the piece. It's nearly non-destructive, but you have to do a tiny little hole that is thinner than a human hair. Okay, so that's why it has to be done in university by specialized people and so on. The hole is thinner than a human hair, and then they extract these milligrams. They put it into a glass vial that has to be proper sealed, and then it has to be transported in special conditions to Luleå and Sweden, and they do the 71 isotopic analysis tests in parts per billion, which most labs are doing in parts per million still. So it's not the best. It's one of the best labs on testing minerals in the world. That's why they're doing it there. So well, we are all excited to see the results. Let's see what comes forward.
I was talking to Jeff up north, I think just yesterday, about maybe doing a booze cruise for the Lake Superior region, maybe starting in Ashland, somewhere that's kind of central to all of these different copper deposits, and actually having people go up and down giving tours about the copper deposits. So, if academia doesn't want to come to us, we're just going to take it to academia and have, the tours.
Sure.
Right? I think that's a great way of just
Did you
bypassing.
did you said a bus tour or a booze tour? Because I heard a booze tour and I said what?
Right. No, so a booze cruise is basically where everybody piles onto a boat. They've got a big bar, and then you've got a tour guide who's telling you about all the stops, the Apostle Islands, all
Uh-huh.
these different, major copper deposits. As everybody's just having a good time, get
Well,
drunk. They don't have one of those. It's Wisconsin, so it's perfect,
Yeah, this is a classic American phrase, the booze cruise, right? You
right?
might not have heard that one before.
no.
It makes
This
me
go on, Ethan.
it makes me think the whole stream of the um, argument or divergence with the copper story. It makes me question at what point does anomaly become consistency to where it's accepted? Because there's in fact so many anomalies that are verified by these isotopic testing and inference of their location and so on and so forth that I think point to consistency as you're pointing to. It's almost like your question of coincidence, or what when does anomaly become consistency and accepted?
Well, I think that's the great part about doing tours is that you don't need their consensus to just start telling people what you know, and then they can come and attack you or whatever the hell they want to do. But again, they've got the uphill climb, and it's very important for people like us to realize when the establishment is downhill from us, right? Because if we don't realize that, then we can't really make anything from it. But they've been doing that to us for generations.
Yeah.
So we have the upper hand. We need to use that. That's the only way that we can get things to change, is using your advantages.
I was confronted yesterday by several of the people that were there, and some of them are hearing this for 30 years. There's a lot of people even older than I am. And what I noticed them is there's urge to why don't those papers go to peer review, or why don't we just go forward and come? And I was trying to explain to them that it doesn't make anything putting papers to peer review, because it's only internal thing, and most likely you'll get rejected, right? So what we need, and that's what I'm trying to push forward, what we need is public awareness. We need the public to understand this story, to take their own conclusions, and then eventually we moving forward and more people is aware of this, and then they themselves will be forced to address these issues that are on the shelf for so many years, in order to see, okay, let's then look at this and see what is there, right? Because going straight to the academics, and not all of them are bad people. For instance, the Universe Unveiled, Sarah and Jacqueline, I think they're going to release this Wednesday. A big individual on archaeology. He's done many things in South America, lots of TV shows. What's the name of the fellow?
He consults on ancient aliens.
He consults on ancient aliens, and he's an archaeologist. So, and he's very open minded for the little things that I saw in the trailer and so on. He's going to be interesting because he's an academic. On the other side, we had this fellow on that, don't know if you cross with him on X. That is GT Lewis, Jeffrey Lewis, that picked up my paper and read it and decided to make an example to his students on how to do a peer review paper. But he was very kind in the review. He even says, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I can't contradict it either. It's just it's not the thing that I'm inclined to believe is correct right now. But it's I'm glad that he said it's your facts are well substantiated. You are aware of the literature. You didn't invent anything. You're just exposing facts, and that's very positive. So we need perhaps more people like that come and say, okay, I might not agree with your conclusions, but your facts are there. You go through the literature, you present your case from what others academics work has been done, and so on and so forth. And that's what I try to do. I'm trying to use their material and put it together because they all work in these little things completely separated from one another. This matter never comes together. So how can these people take conclusions if they never put all of this list? Like I made metallurgy, mining, um paleo-environmental conditions. I put all of these things together to try and show that what they're saying happened could not have happened because none of that is in the testing and the sampling and the studies that were done by academics, not by the Joaquim from the store back there. So it's done by them. It's just that they don't communicate with one another. They just things are. I don't know how to explain it, but I think if they had, and they do. So GT Lewis is always saying we have lots of conferences when we go and debate things and so on. But probably those conferences debate the same thing. They're not bringing people from different sectors and sharing their thoughts on the same subject. So each research is separated. Uh,
It's interesting, growing up, I got the inference, and I bet you guys did too, that I've only recently shook off. And it was this subtle lesson to not value the anecdotal. And I think actually the anecdotal experience is of a lot of value, as you're talking about the booze cruise idea, Headless. Like anecdotal experience and anecdotal evidence sometimes is valuable, though I believe we're taught to dismiss it automatically. Some of it can be dismissible, certainly, but it's not automatic.
yeah, well, in here the biggest problem that I've seen from academics when they morning brew it, it's very late there. Um,
We're very early.
it's exactly the problem is not the data itself or the copper or whatever. The problem is just the transatlantic travel
Right.
because there aren't data about that. At least in modern archaeology, there's lots on the reports that go way back, oh, like 11th century, 8th century, 5th century. There are reports of that. The problem is there is none in academic terms that they say this is confirmed. So transatlantic travel doesn't exist, and that's the major problem here because it's like it's like reading a book and where you agree with everything and then you get to the final lines and it says and this was happened because it was aliens coming from Alpha Centauri, right? And then you blow it all, say, okay, I cannot stand by this. Okay,
There are the anomalies, though, right? Like, even in what is a highly questionable story unto itself, when the pilgrims came to the United States, so the colony or whatever, the New World, they met an Indian who was able to speak English fluently and communicated with them. And how do you know our language? Oh, there's other people that come here, and then that's just scuttlebutted and not questioned. But yeah, surely there were secretive, probably trade oriented things going on. It makes me think too of the ancient battle, really in the mental, but often even showing forth in politics and any number of things. The battle between the sophist and the Socratic, right? You're dealing with extremely sophistry groups, or sophist oriented groups, that are not going to accept the anecdotal or anything that's individual and not backed up by an institution, and as it goes.
if they want to look at things from uniformitarian or gradualistic perspective, like evaluating the past by what we see in the present, that's exactly what they do. Um Tell me of one expedition that was done in the last 200 years that they didn't know where they were going. It doesn't exist. They had at least some maps, they have at least some notion of what they're going to find, because you're not going to put an armada or three or four ships that can hold up to 1,000 people to certain death. No one will sign up to do such a thing. You have to have at least an idea. So we know from certain reports that there were monks going to the Americas in the 11th century, in the 13th century, right? There are reports of that, right? And those reports are not academic, of course, but there are reports of that happening. And then you talk to the indigenous people, and when you go in certain places, they say, "Oh yes, there was a tribe of white people, tribe or a group of white people living over there, and they already had the cross and this and so on." And all of that was rejected because for some reason, when finally Columbus, after Columbus arrived, and after that the Spanish and all of those that came after, they didn't find them because
Wow.
for some reason, right? But there are reports that they,
Find them.
yeah. So it's for instance,
That shatters all the paradigms is the idea that if they could have kept this secret for thousands of years, their transatlantic trade with copper and all the rest of that stuff, what does that mean about today and the current governments we have? Because they've been keeping secrets for thousands and thousands of years. And we're just now starting to figure that out, that we've been lied to for longer than most of our families have even existed.
yeah, but even the politicians don't know about these things. You have to be in a certain level or belong to a certain ritualistic group in order to access some of this information because
Right.
most people don't know about these things. They're just affiliated to a party or they have their beliefs and they are participating in the way that they think it's correct in society.
Well, specifically with the Christopher Columbus, that was totally political. Them choosing this guy, his family, and everything else. It was a ritual. It was chosen. They went through all of the steps to get this guy to be the one that discovers the new world because they wanted to imprint it with their own information. And that's sort of where we are when it comes to all information. It has to be imprinted by somebody else before it's accepted as fact.
And not to mention that how many countries say that he belongs to them,
Right.
Columbus, right? Because he went to the Portuguese and the Portuguese said, nah, we are interested in the Indies. It's to the other side of of the planet. We don't know what's up there, so no. And then he went to the Spanish. And the Spanish that had some gold to spend after many tries said, okay, we'll give you 2 or 3 ships and go on and to your own death and see what you can find. Right? But the fact is, he had maps, and this is also not accepted, but he had maps to show where he was going. He was not telling them, "Oh, I'm just going to go west, and I think I'm going to find something over there." Like, who's going to follow a guy? It's like going completely into the unknown for months. So you're not going to going to a mission that is a suicide. He had maps, and those maps came from older maps, and those maps came from older maps, and so on and so forth.
Well, Leif Erikson had on his party a Catholic priest. I'm not sure if he was a priest or a monk, but he had with him members of the Catholic Church that went back and talked to the Catholic Church and told them about all of this stuff that existed over there. So there's absolutely even no reason to keep Columbus as the center point of all of this other than for political reasons.
Geopolitical reasons, exactly.
And those geopolitical reasons are still in effect today because it's almost unchallenged that somehow Christopher Columbus is the discoverer of the New World, even though we know specifically that he wasn't.
Well, the Vikings got to Newfoundland, 500 years before or something like that, or 400 years before.
In the 1100s, right?
Yeah. And we know, for instance, this was brought to my attention by James Shears, that I think, unfortunately, is one of the unsung heroes of this all of these stories. He said to me, "Well, I need you to go and look for this fellow. There is Peter the Roo." And I had very little to search for, but he told me that this guy was sent to the Vatican by a high family, probably a royal family. I can't remember right now. For records of something that is completely unrelated to transatlantic travel. But while he was at the Vatican, so he had access to the secret part of the library, and he was there trying to get information. And he gets to this, and this is how he's known, because he wrote 2 huge volumes on about this. He starts seeing these documents about this 3 monks and a bishop that were in the 11th century in Portugal when came the first invasion from the Muslims. They were reaching the area that they were. This is the top of the expansion and the beginning of the decline of the Muslim impact in the Iberia. And so it's written there that they got into a boat and went to America. And when they got to America, they found not Indians, but other fellow monks that already were practicing Christianity, and they stayed with the tribe, right? And eventually, I don't know if it is one of them, I can't remember right now, comes back to tell this story, and all of these archives were put into the Vatican, and they stay there. And so obviously when they decide in the 1500s to go to the Americas, I'm sure someone knew about this. Someone knew that there was something there, right? And I believe that exact same happened for the Bronze and the Copper Age, because these people had already been there and see what can only be described like, imagine a full cliff. There is a piece of copper
Right.
outside of the ground, right? And it valued nothing for them at the time. And then suddenly, around 4000 BC, that metal becomes extremely important in Europe.
Right.
It's like the resource to have and to sell. And someone says, "Oh, I know there's a load sheet of that, and you don't have to mine for it. You don't have to go antler pickets and stone tools digging into the ground to take ore, and then that ore has to be processed, and then you only take a tiny itsy bitsy of copper of each of those pieces. That's ridiculous. I can go over there in 2 months and bring you a shitload of copper that you just have to melt and make whatever you want. It's pure copper. It's metallic copper, right? So who had these secrets obviously created the bronze, because we know how many times has a demand for the public created by the person that is selling it, right? We are told what to buy. It's like diskettes, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays. They invented all this stuff. We didn't adhere to that strand. It was something that we started consuming it because it was the best that we could use to store our information or to watch a movie or whatever. Right? So the Bronze Age, most academics will say, oh, it was born from the necessity to create tools, and it was the best material that they have, and so on. And how about if someone told them that's the best material that they have?
Right.
How about someone tell you this is what you need and this is what I have? Oh, really good. Do you have more? Yes, I have lots more. So when we see that instead of coming and being spread by Europe itself, what we see is there is these hubs like south of England where there was tin that later on they could start produce the bronze. It's Don Anna's Park that looks exactly like a Cartesian harbor with the concentric rings and so on and so forth. A huge structure just for boats. It looks like Atlantis.
Carthage.
Yes.
Carthage.
It looks like Carthage, but it isn't. It's the Don Anna Park right after the Strait of Gibraltar. Right after.
Right.
And then we have this tiny island in the middle of the Mediterranean, whose name is Copper, is Cyprus, which means copper. Today we call it Cyprus.
Cyprus.
That in 3,000 years produced only a maximum of 35 tons of copper. And yet there were ships with 10 tons of copper sailing coming from that place. Right? How is it possible? It had to come.
And the inclination for people to get a limited resource would necessitate and advocate secrecy. And also you would want to maintain the idea that, oh yeah, we have a bunch, but it's very hard to get. And it's
very hard to get.
You know, you can't.
And they had mines.
You have to pay what we ask for.
They had mines. They could go and say, "See, this is very hard to extract this material."
It was a sales job, and that sort of points to the very obvious conclusion that what if the Vatican, the academic establishment, and whatever this Bronze Age culture that was going back and forth across the Atlantic, what if they're all the same organization? It begs the question, I think.
And why is it that when somebody decided to change from diskettes to CD, which means changing from bronze to iron, right? It just ended. It just like that. They say collapse. It didn't collapse. It just ended. They stopped coming from the copper. This copper stopped being taken from the ground, and they went into iron because someone decided it was time to change the economy, right? So, because sooner or later, one of them will change to iron because iron is clearly better than
Period.
copper or bronze. So, since it's going to happen, it's the same thing. How long did we have to use diskettes when there were warehouses filled with CDs?
Right.
Because they haven't sold all the diskettes yet. So they needed to
So
sell
the
the
same
diskettes.
idea, isn't smelting copper a lot easier compared to making steel, right? So the technology was growing and getting out of their hands, so they probably had to make the change, right?
Well, the big problem is how much is lost, right? If you could smelt the copper and not have a huge loss, like with iron, all you have to do to reforge it is just heat it up, you know. But with copper, it's not the same thing when you're pulling it out of the ground. There's more effort actually in smelting it after you take the temperature out of the way, right? So there's more to know about the chemical compounds that you have to make this stuff good than you do about iron. And iron is pretty much self-explanatory. When you pound in all of the carbon into the iron, that's when you get steel. And it's just that, I mean, like, it's A plus B equals C. Whereas when it comes to copper and bronze, you have to test and test and test and lose and test more and keep digging. It's just like the whole process seems way too labor intensive, but they couldn't get up to the high kind of temperatures it would take to melt down this iron stuff. But they did know about it.
Sure. And they got pretty good at it. In fact, by the end of the Bronze Age, like around 1000 BC, the area of the Donana Park, that was one of these hubs, and probably the one that kept working for longer in terms of sending it even to the tops of nearly Russia. They were sending from there almost to Russia. All of those small discs of a multi-composite alloy of copper that they were sending, that they still called copper ingots for some reason. They don't look like it, but still have the same name. These discs were a mixture that included recycled copper, metallic copper, some ore copper, because it was all maxed up. They were already mixing all that they had, and instead producing those huge copper ingots, it's just these small discs, completely prepared. You just receive it, for instance, in I don't know, I can't say a name of the country there, but in the borders of Russia, at that area up north. It is a recent paper about that. You receive those pieces, you just have to heat them up, and whatever piece you wanted to make, you just pour that little disc into a stone mold, and
Right.
your piece is done. There's nothing more to it. They were so industrialized by that time, and using whatever they had. It's clear that the sources from the New World were already ceasing for some reason, and iron was starting to be the metal to use. But in terms of metal, and I had this discussion yesterday, most people don't know this. We still say that iron was not known until that point. I disagree.
Right.
And they say, oh, we don't find the furnaces or the kilns to produce the iron because iron requires a lot more heat. Of course you don't. Because if you go to the Japanese, they're still doing it today to create the best steel carbon that you can find, that they call tamahane. What they do is they don't need a mine of iron. They need iron-rich sand.
Right.
That's all they need is iron-rich sand. So you put lots of this iron inside of what looks like a big sarcophagus made of mud. They put a lot of wood inside, they close it, and it's constantly vented, and it reaches more than enough temperature to melt all of that sand, to evaporate the silica and the glass, and what remains is just the iron. That's sinks it to the bottom like you're pouring honey, sick honey. It's the look that it has at the bottom. It's burned for 36 hours
Right.
continuously without stop. And when the operation ends, you have tiny little pieces like this size that they call the tamahane, that is the high carbon content that the sword masters would buy more expensively than gold to produce the swords. And the rest to them is just junk. It's just a huge piece of iron that sits at the bottom of this. And the most what I want to get is this. In order to extract the metal from these furnaces, the furnace has to be completely destroyed. And because it's mud, there's nothing to be found. You go and look there, and it's like a fire pit. Oh, there's another fire pit. It could have been a furnace for iron because it has to be completely destroyed.
You can't use them over again. And this is another point that we keep coming back to, is that these people have to be the most ignorant when it comes to understanding iron production, because the vast majority of iron that was produced back then was taken out of bogs. They weren't mining in the hills for it. It was taken out of bogs. Like all of these iron rich springs would produce these what's it called? Pig iron, right? Around the outside of these holes. They'd harvest it from there, from inside of these swamps, and then they'd start to try and heat it up to a level to where they could actually use it. But it was not the industrial type production that you need with copper.
Exactly.
Right? It wasn't the same thing at all. So the ignorance that really gets displayed when people talk about these general topics like the Chalcolithic and the Iron Age, it's mind-boggling how little people who are supposed to be experts in this field actually know about these topics. Because when you bring these things up to them, it's like they're completely ignorant of it. It's like, well, I just figured there was something. No, look, they had meteorite weapons in the Egyptian Chalcolithic age.
Yes.
They knew exactly what iron was.
Yes, I have no doubts about it. It's just the fact that it's more copper during that period than iron is just because it's the product that was being pushed forward. Exactly as today. You go to the supermarket and you can't get the thing that you saw and you know that it exists because they're pushing what they have to sell. And those big companies produce this and completely dominate the market in what is going to put there. Right? Like I think you all know this. The same company that bought a huge fast food corporation is the same company that is selling creams and stuff for the fat people. So they are, you're laughing, but it's true. So they are promoting fast food on one side and then creating products for
What a great business model.
for skincare and fat loss and so on.
That doesn't ring a bell as to which corporation it is, but that.
And and so it's just a matter of it's not just technological, it's highly corporative, and we think that corporations don't exist now. Well, the Templars were a corporation. All of those sect groups were big corporations making money.
We know who was selling all of the bronze, all of the copper. It was coming from one group of people. They were the arms dealers for the world. We know that it was the Canaanite Phoenicians. They say it was. All of the Greeks say it was. All of the Egyptians say it was. So what are we even arguing about? If they had access to the New World, it would just fit the pattern.
Sure, and I have highly suspicions that go if you don't know about this, go and look for Uluburum shipwreck. I have highly suspicions because the contents of the boat are well known. It sunk it at 60 meters depth. That's where it lay down. So it's not that deep, but it's beyond what could be then used to retrieve this material, or they didn't know where it sunk, which I think it's most likely. The contents of this boat show that it was going to a very rich, probably a dynasty of kings or pharaohs or whatever. Someone was getting a ship full of rich materials that not even the rich people could obtain. You have to be really high to get those kinds of materials in that quantity. And you had 10 tons of copper and 1 ton of tin, which means upon arrival you could arm an army with 10 tons of bronze. You could create an enormous attack force, well armed, with 10 tons of bronze. So in my opinion, someone sunk that ship so it never got to that country in order to create that army. That's what I take in, but this is my fantasy. Okay, I have
Right.
no evidence for this.
Pure speculation, people.
Pure speculation.
A possibility, but a high likelihood if we look at the trends of history.
Right.
Just remember lots of centuries after, because people think that there are no secrets in simple things of life,
It's not
like
true.
hats, like
Metal-
hats.
Metal was the highest state security secret back then. They did not let it out because once you let it out, then people could fight back. Metallurgy was a state secret, is a state secret even today. All of these, major contractors with the government know things about metallurgy that the rest of the general public is not allowed to know. We are not living in a free like that's just not the case. All of this stuff is cyclical and very historical. And we need to be looking at these trends or else we've completely missed it.
What's the name of the material that does those ancient hats that still are used today? That are round hats, the black material. It's felter, or no? How is it called? It's like the pens. It has the same name of the pens that children used to paint.
You talking about mercury or?
No. The material, the texture of the textile of the hats. It's felter. Felter. I don't know how it's called. Felt. Right.
Felt is a material. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
So this looks trivial, right? But it reached a point in the 18th century, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on the date, because I don't look at Saint-Germain for long. But the industry of hats had reached a point where if the first guy to create this compound that could create cheaper and better hats that could be tainted much more easily, the quality was much better, and this was like an alchemy work. And who we find just before the breakthrough that made the Germans dominate the world in terms of production of hats. This looks ridiculous, but it's a fact. So we find Saint-Germain like 5 years before that in Belgium, dressed as a wizard, basically, as described by Casanova, and he is trying to create a new type of felter, whatever is the name for those hats, using alchemy. And we know that whatever he found, those secrets, were sold to the Germans, and the Germans revolutionized the production of hats and kept the secret of that composition as long as they could. In fact, the what do you call the others that are not the ones selling not the opponents, but the competition selling hats had to find it for themselves by reverse engineering, and it took years for them to keep up with the Germans. And then when they finally find that domination ended, but they dominated the world in terms of hat production just because of that breakthrough that I believe it was Saint-Germain that got to it while he was in Belgium with a complete inside the Star Fort, doing alchemy to try and find how to produce this new type of material. So this is no different from the copper or the iron. These secrets were very well kept, right? So, and the market is dominated by that, and that's how they make fortunes, and that's how they control countries and so on and so forth, is through industrial secrets.
And I would point out too that it's a high likelihood that the legendary ancient libraries were also intelligence operations, right? And of course, the Vatican making up one of the profound ones that are still around that have attained who knows what from wherever.
Yeah.
It's really an intelligence op. It's not only them collecting things; it's all geared towards adventurism. And when I was a kid, I thought going on an adventure was a fun thing to do with buddies to explore the back alleys or something, right? But actually, the real meaning of adventure is more like what we term adventurism, and that is going out and about to seek plunder. And there is a Taoist lesson that is the complete opposite of this that we don't tend to do too much. But we can adopt it even if we're not actually doing it in a bigger sense. Free and easy wandering. And so instead of, it's very much like Headless. I think of the Hopi lesson too, where the four brothers travel the four corners of the earth and then reunite and share everything that they've learned. There's no restriction of information to gain off of other people. There's nothing like that. It's open information and coming together. So I think this free and easy wandering is the same kind of idea. This just spontaneous and unrestricted and open and friendly, which most people, most institutions, of course, when they travel, they don't do this. So just an idea to take on the free and easy wandering. And there's a lot of writings of this idea.
Right. I think laws only exist for people who obsess over laws. Borders only exist for people who obsess over borders. For the people who are actually crossing and doing whatever they want, like they're not actually paying attention to what anybody else is saying. And in a lot of ways, that's sort of what the adventure represents is sort of like you're doing your own thing without being restricted.
Yep.
Nobody's getting in your way. And I think a lot of that is, kind of what the New World represented for a lot of people, is coming over here for the adventure of it. We're still being adventured, I mean, if you think about it, look, we've got the money and now we're just letting everybody in. So it's
I have a friend that owns a property. He was the second owner of the property in history. Wow. So like it's California even just got brand new, and the whole West Coast, the road from that connects Alaska to the Canada and the continental U.S. It's all like when they went through there, bears had never seen people before, and they assumed that because like they would just come up to them and snuggle with them, and they had no idea who they were, what they were. So yeah, it's still got that sense of go west.
Right.
With that go west, young man.
Right. When I was at the Cowboy Hall of Fame, they just have this immense collection of Western artworks. Right. So it's just painting after painting of massive skies, all just, Western themed paintings. Right. But like they had some that were 2 stories tall of just nothing but sky. It was like divinity. Right. It was so well crafted, all of this painting. You have to put it on the same level as sort of like a church, like they're worshiping this environment, and it really is something to behold. If people took the time to actually love the place that they're in, I don't think we would have so many of the problems that we do right now. I mean, like you got to actually love this place because it's your home, but a lot of people just don't. It's just for sale, It's so much real estate.
Well, what I was bringing to the discussion today is to talk about we started with it, is to talk about what we called advanced civilization or advanced technology, because most people, especially the people linked to aliens and so on, each time spoke about Atlantis or advanced civilizations, they always see pyramids producing electricity or nuclear materials, or that the ancients had electricity and lamps and they function more or less like we do, and they have flying machines and so on and so forth. I haven't found any of that, but I have found extremely advanced technology that we still baffled. We call it magic and even don't believe that it was real. And yet it has originated stories that the one that I'm bringing today is Hagar Quinn. And some academics believe, thank you, Shaman, some academics believe that this is the justification for the myth of the sirens. So the sirens, and you both must know this, the sirens had the ability to make sailors mad and start attacking one another, or even sink ships or drive the ships against the rocks, and so on and so forth. And so this temple in Malta, right on the cliff, turned to the sea, has these symbols of these drawings of these fat ladies, and these fat ladies are singing. Well, these fat ladies are singing inside a temple that, if I am able to share my screen, which it doesn't seem to be happening for some reason, if
I can look it up.
no, I have the images here. I just think
Got
I
it,
need
okay.
to open an image, and then it allows me to share the screen of the image. Let's see if it
Right.
happens.
If you just hit share screen, you can
Let's see. Share screen. It should be here. Window. Yes, it is. Okay, share. So let me go there instead of here. So this temple was first looked at by an academic, and he was inside the temple, and he didn't quite realize what he was doing. But then he started looking it on the floor plans and so on and so forth. And he remembers that he, as a young boy, he was very much into amateur radio, right?
Hmm.
And when he was looking to the plan, he said, "Dear Lord, because this is what points to the sea. This is exactly like an 800 megahertz wireless antenna. It's exactly the same thing in terms of structure." And this is the temple where they find this. I don't know if I have here any of the. This is the temple. You see the ocean. Um, Let me see if I have that here somewhere in the images.
so it's literally channeling in the sound from the ocean into this.
No,
600
no, from the temple to the ocean.
Hmm.
So what he said is he was starting
So
to think,
the
okay, this
mythos
doorway.
of the siren, it
Yeah,
relates to this. That is so dope, Ricardo. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. Just
No,
to
no.
be clear.
This temple, I can find the images right now, but people can go and look it up. It's called Hagar Queen. This temple has the best representations of one of the best representations of these fat ladies, these sirens, in the position that they are singing, and also has lots of representations of spirals of sound. And so we started to think, okay, I have this structure, I have this as a direction. Let me go into the maps and see what I can find straight ahead. And so what he found straight ahead is an island called Lampedusa. It's a real island. Let me see, I have it here somewhere. And this island is 60 kilometers in the Mediterranean. Okay? You cannot see it from Malta. It's beyond the horizon. So in that alone, the alignment bugs the mind, because they will manage to align two sites without line of sight
And
through an ocean. Through an
he
ocean.
he inferred from the design of that temple that if it were a radio device or whatever, that it was aimed in a particular direction.
Exactly. So
Wow.
this
And
is one of the things that he managed to hypothetically confirm, is that in the Lampedusa island there are these semicircles that were bigger, of course, right? And they were receiving the sound from the temple, from the Agar Queen, 60 kilometers away, which is about 40 miles, I don't know, 35 miles, something like that. Receiving the sound, and translating the waves into words again. So information could be sent from Malta to Lampedusa, and from Lampedusa, on the other side of this island, there is exactly out of structure like this pointing to Africa.
There's another one.
Yes, pointing to Africa, to the coast. So they were communicating across 60 kilometers of water. And people that are saying, oh, the sound doesn't go there. We'll go there. I'll go there. And this was a long distance communication system. And this is academic paper. This is not me making this stuff up. So,
And of course, this could be something that would just disappear as far as information on as soon as these countries had a collapse of one sort or another.
of course.
It'd be
So,
so secret that
so I went and looked and said, well, how does sound goes 60 kilometers across water? Well, it's very simple, because I found an explanation for that. That is, when you introduce a sound over water or whatever, the amplitude decreases with distance, right? We know this. The thing is, if you do it over calm waters, and the Mediterranean can be very calm, what happens is the coldness of the water recompresses the waves. You can see the waves, right? Recompresses the waves, and the volume 60 kilometers after is exactly the same as the one that left the temple. Because
that's
it goes,
coincidental. Isn't it 60 kilometers in the ocean?
Yeah.
Didn't you say?
and it's reconstructed by the semicircular structure, and you can hear it once more. You cannot hear it if you are on the water, unless it is like a melody or something that your ears can pick or your body can feel, but they are not exactly hearing it. So after speculating, after realizing, sorry,
That brings up frequency, because depending on the frequency that you're being vibrated inside of this chamber, that's going to depend on the resonance of it, and that's going to also depend on the pitch of the person
exactly.
creating the sound.
So some of these chambers have different symbols. So each one of them was used for a different function, and this is where I'm getting with this tale, is that this guy, this academic, said, okay, so considering that I can create different frequencies from this place according to where what's the chamber that I'm using, then I can put this fat lady singing, and according to the sound or the music or whatever, I can lead ships to shore into safety, or if I don't like them, they make the crews completely insane, and thus generating the myth of the sirens that make sailors mad, and no one knew why.
I just had another thought on that. So this constant theme of being mad and sailing happens over and over again throughout Greek mythology. And I was thinking it could have something to do with the fact that most of the men on that ship were slaves, and they were rowing for the rest of their lives, right? So it doesn't take much to get a person in that situation to go mad and start, killing people or
Really dehydrated, malnourished,
right? Or trying to jump off the boat, because there's not much of a future there. So you might as well.
You'd be influenced so quick in a tired, malnourished state like that.
But don't forget this: we have this castle in Italy that is called the Groparello Castle. That was like a few decades ago bought by a family that reconstructed, or it didn't need reconstruction, but it needs some improvements to be a place that could live, because they are actually living in this castle, and they opened it to the public. The history of this castle is extremely interesting, because it's placed on a much ancient site, probably predating the Romans, and it had a tower. And this tower has an hypogeum beneath it. And that hypogeum beneath it has, even today when they bought it, a pipe organ. They don't know what kind of instrument was being used before that, but now it has a pipe organ. So The history tells this: for 600 years, two highly, it's not royal, they were not kings, but highly, how do you say it, noble families of high standard fought for 600 years because one of the families wanted to take over that castle. For 600 years, he never managed to get close to the castle. Several waves of soldiers were sent, and they could never reach even the walls of the castle. And so this archaeoacoustic team goes to Groparello and starts testing it and realizes that it creates a bubble of compressed 4 hertz. And 4 hertz produces loss of limb control, hallucination, um, madness. Your worst fears come into your mind like you're living in a nightmare that you can't resist. And so when you go in back and read the reports of these 600 years of attacks, you see that the soldiers, when they got near the castle, they start attacking one another. They take off their clothes and start running naked, screaming. They went completely, and some of them irreversibly mad, never returned from the madness that they were suffering. So this castle had to do nothing to repel an army because you just have to play a tune in an hypogeum and creates this effect that made it to the point. This, when this was found, this was so important. Then the Russians themselves tried this in the battlefield. They tested this compressed 4 hertz. They abandoned it for a simple reason, and this is on the literature. Everyone was getting affected. They never managed to create the bubble because that's what the tower creates.
They may have figured it out by now, right? Because there's an example of the Havana syndrome,
Hmm.
and it's supposed the U.S. institutions, for what that's worth nowadays, believe that this is originated in Russian intelligence, and it's essentially a radio frequency that hurts people long term potentially and drives them into pain and just confusion. They also, just when the United States captured the Venezuelan president Maduro, they used sonar attack weapons to confuse the armed forces.
So you see, we're still talking the same thing almost 6 or 7,000 years after. The and this, what I found extremely interesting about Groparello is, it seems to me that the Romans acquired this technology there because the Romans were the ones to make the tower even bigger, right? And we see that the difference between this place, the Groparello Castle, the Hypogeum, and Baalbek, the place where the demolished tower that is just next to that gigantic water reservoir. I don't know if you know this, but the tower is destructed. I believe that the Romans thought this is extremely useful and we can use this to even increase our chances in battle. But obviously, they cannot take a tower to battle. And I think that they were testing with this in Baalbek by constructing that tower, but they didn't have the water underneath. The water is by the side. And in Groparello, the water is beneath. Not only that, it's a fault zone that creates the first of the frequencies of the trident, or frequencies that the academics refer in archaeoacoustics all the time. That is, one of the frequencies is produced by the Earth itself because it's a microseismic area, and the friction creates its own natural frequency that is amplified by this hypogeum, this square on the rock. And then it's the sound that is produced by the humans in that structure. And then there's the resonance that is created by the fusion of these two sounds that creates the third sound, that is the third tooth of the trident, that is the one that is going to produce the effects, especially if they can create standing waves and they can compress or uncompress the waves. For instance, in churches, you have the same 4 hertz. The difference is, when 4 hertz are compressed, it causes that madness. When 4 hertz is uncompressed, it causes the sensation of bliss, of touching the divine, of... You are muted, so I don't know what you're saying.
How do you compress the hertz? That's
by the structure itself. So when you create the standing waves, it's a matter of modulation. And through modulation, this is what happened when Chris Dunn went for the first and only time with equipment to test the acoustics of the King's Chamber on the Big Pyramid, he started to increase the modulation, and everything started to vibrate, and people start getting very scared, and the experience ended with everybody of the team running from the Gan Gallery to outside because they were so afraid for some reason. And what we know is the experiment was never reproduced again because they started with an uncompressed wave and they kept increasing the modulation, and the standing waves got compressor and compressor and compressor, and everything, the structure starts to vibrate, and people start getting in those fears, that surge of madness, of unsettling sensations. Yeah, there you
So
go.
this is a standing wave. Thought we'd just play this real quick.
So every single monument that you go, megalithic monument, was built to create standing waves. From West Kennet Long Barrow to what's the name of the other one? That other big one. Well, I can't remember. I'm out of archaeoacoustics for so long I can't remember the names anymore. But there are several of them. New Grange. For instance, you have this story of the Viking king coming to a ceremony with the English, South English king. So they get out of the boats and they start journeying on land, and this terrible storm starts to come. And so they decide, let's go into Newgrange, which obviously was not a tomb because it was open. So they start coming to, they see Newgrange and decide to go into the chambers. One of their Vikings, for some reason, probably he was angry with someone or was just a guy who likes to be alone, goes to the first chamber on the left and stays there alone. Well, they never saw the ceremony because the guy that was alone on that chamber, and we presume that the wind channelizing in going in Newgrange created the necessary resonance to create the standing wave inside that chamber, and the guy went mad. And so trying to control that single guy from the whole group, when they finally got to the king, it was already too late because that guy ruined all of that for them. And this is written in the chronicles that the fellow that was inside that chamber in Newgrange went insane and never come back. They never recovered. So whatever he saw inside those chambers, he never recovered. So this is real, and we are reproducing this for medical purposes. The churches have been done this for 1600 years or more. It's what led people into this madness belief is the music and the structures of these churches, because it creates the sensation of bliss, the sensation of touching the divine, that made them completely believers that what they were receiving was exactly the contact with God. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that the structure is built for that purpose, and the music is composed for that purpose. And then the structure itself creates the third melody, and that's the one that creates the effects. Technology is not only, you are muted again. Technology is not only cell phones and televisions.
Right. And, that was the purpose of religion, is to give people a positive story and a positive message so that, they're not always in this sort of the shitty place that they live at. It was sort of like a recreation or escapism. It's always been that to some extent. That's kind of the purpose of religion, is to get people outside of their situation and maybe see things from a different perspective. And I think a lot of that has been lost. It's, they're not even trying to do that anymore. It seems like they've lost.
They are in what's in theaters and auditoriums.
Right.
They are using all of this technology to better propagate the sound and all of that. So the technology, sound is very well known to us today. We just don't know if overtly they use it for other purposes than to give a better show or to make everybody listen, right? Because the only archaeoacoustic studies done in Egypt, for instance, there are in open temples. It shows that the people that were outside could hear the sound of the speaker inside the temple louder than the people that were inside the temple listening to him. In Greece, we have structures that is not just the temples or the houses, is the very construction of the city itself. When the guy was giving a speech inside the whatever it was, the main building, the people were not only outside, they were a corner away. So imagine he's speaking here, and there's a building, and this is the agora where people are. So, and these people here also hear the volume of the guy that is speaking inside the building louder than the people that is inside the building. You go to ancient it's not coliseums. How do you call it? Theaters, Roman theaters. That's what they call them. And these Roman theaters, we still don't understand how the person in the top stairs listens to the man on the stage whispering. Right? And this is what we're trying to reproduce in our new modern auditoriums and conference halls. And we still need the microphones, which they didn't.
Right. And the Greeks were obsessed with space and mathematics. I mean, these were the two obsessions for them, and this is why you get these magnificent temples and all of these different, beautiful things that they built, is because they were trying to engineer the environment using these very basic formulas that
How many people know that inside the Roman Colosseum there were naval battles?
Right.
Naval battles.
They filled it up with water and had naval battles inside of the Colosseum. So,
and they didn't have plastic or rubber to isolate the water. So it was just stone and sand, and they fill it up all with water and recreate naval battles in that. Right? It looks like science fiction, but it's completely true.
They had things underneath that they pulled open and that flooded the chambers, or how did they fill it?
All we know is when that is filled with water, you could use the underground of that slabs of stone that were the ceiling. The slaves and the gladiators were all living inside that with no water permeating. So whatever system they had to fill it in and empty it out, we have no idea. It's not as rudimentary as let the water flood all the chambers. No, it didn't happen.
Right. That's crazy.
It didn't happen.
Again, all of this stuff is lost to history. And if you do track these different institutions that are libraries, right, but really intelligence operations, it all stops at the Vatican, right? That's a institution of intelligence that took all of the books of the ancient world, and they've been kind of stashing them away for 2,000 years. So, if it is the same group, it kind of makes sense why.
But how many of those libraries existed?
They centralized all of them, basically. Anytime there was a library, the Vatican had it burned down and took all the stuff out. So that was because it was pagan, right?
Sure,
that's what they did all throughout Europe.
Sure. But the thing is, I see most people in the Atlantis community, and then they go to the Hall of Records. This Hall of Records, and it's under the Sphinx. Where did you get that idea? Because if the information we have from Atlantis and the Hall of Records says that the Hall of Records was not only one of the Hall of Records, it was under the temple of Sais. And we know where Sais is, and we know that Sonsis of Sais was the guy that told Solon the Elder, let's go to the Hall of Records under our temple and you can consult our books.
Right.
But no one is looking in Sais. Why? I think this is some kind of psyop that no one is going to Sais and say, okay, we know exactly where the temple is. Why don't we look for the chamber underneath this temple? Because that's where it's written in the literature. I don't see one single person speak of this. It's there that it's indicated that the only known Hall of Records that we know of, or that at least that I know of in the literature, is that one. And no one is looking for that. Why? No one speaks of it. It's the only Hall of Records that we have on Plato's books is that one. So why are we looking for it under the paws of the Sphinx? Because of Alex Crowley? No, is that his name? What's his name? I can't remember. The American mystic that saw those visions and even did the studies on the pyramid and find very good things. I
Right.
can't remember his name. I can't remember the name of the fellow. But he's the one behind the skull and bones and all of that stuff. I can isn't it Aleister Crowley? I think it's something like that. If it isn't Aleister Crowley,
Skull and Bones? No, that was an American that was behind that.
it's an American.
Although,
Yeah, this guy he was a magician, a mystic. He created this gigantic occultist group. I can't remember his name. Someone in the chat, if you know, please let us know because I can't remember his name.
Edgar Casey?
Edward Casey.
there's William Huntington Russell and Alfonso Taft.
No, you are going to the Skull and Bones. This precedes the
Yes.
Skull and Bones. This precedes the Skull and Bones.
okay.
The Skull and
sorry.
Bones is just a divergence of this huge
Sure.
community of rich people. His foundation is still on today. Whoever he is, he still has a foundation today. He's still doing science and research and occult research all together. And the papers that they produced at the time that he was alive about the Great Sphinx, the studies they've done there is still valid today. So it's good material because they didn't mix. They kept the alchemy and mysticism for themselves, and what came out on the reports is like more scientific than anything else. So I was talking about what? Well, I said it. It's the House of Records. Why is no one looking in there? I don't understand.
Right. That's all it would take. But there's a lot of stuff like that too, because in Hawara, they've got the underground that was talked about in Herodotus, like 3 football fields covered over by these slabs of rock, and it's been confirmed using the ground penetrating radar that it's actually there. And nobody's going in there. Nobody's even bothering to open it up or anything because reasons, I guess. But this is one of the most ancient storehouses of knowledge and information in the world. And it's so funny how the most ancient stuff always gets ignored. The most interesting stuff gets passed over. And we're given this bland view of vanilla history that doesn't actually come close to anywhere near the interest that it actually holds.
And for instance, the Portuguese were very secretive of where they're getting their spices, for instance, in order to keep the control. When the English and the French find out where they're going through spying, their empires start to decline because there were more people going there and acquiring it and selling it. So even these small insignificant things like sugar or coffee, they were treated as state secrets when the royal families were the ones in control of that because they want to make the money.
Right. Big time. And a lot of the guilds kept a lot of this information for themselves too. So the whole purpose of being in a guild back then was so that you weren't sharing your trade secrets with the rest of the world, right? So they would have these stonecutters guilds. This is why they have these cathedrals, and the way that they're built is because those guilds were keeping secrets, and they kept them for a lot longer than anybody wants to talk about. But those were still the same builders of all the rest of this stuff. They just kept it in the family line. They kept it in the secrets. And, if it seems like everybody's sort of lost their memory today, it could have something to do with the fact that we've been dumbed down to such a degree that maybe we can't even understand these kind of things, or, maybe not have the same sort of relationship with those families anymore. So there could be a lot of being lost right now, right?
We've been outplayed. It reminds me of one of the ideas behind being a ninja was to go to all the different schools and learn about all the different schools and their weapons. Usually there was a school that focused on a weapon. As the story goes, this is debated and not necessarily accurate 100%, but I think the idea itself is worthwhile. And when they learned these different weapon systems from these different schools, they then knew what they were going to do as a response to things that occurred. And so ninjas would do the typical allegory of this idea is that a ninja would set a fire at one point of the guarded complex, and he knew what they were going to do in going to the fire and so on, and he would then make a move off of that response to his action, and that's kind of what the powers that be do with the Hegelian dialectic typified, right? It's like they know what we're going to do like ninjas. They learned it all, put it all together, and they made us make it had us steered towards the idea that learning things, certain things are esoteric or occult or knowledgeable ideas are taboo and negative towards our holy book and holy institution, but they're all doing it.
Right. They're the first ones to do it. And you can see that perfectly typified by the fact that the Vatican names all of the asteroids, right? So they're the ones who name all, and not a single one is from the Bible. So they're not even using their own mythology, they're using everybody else's mythology to name these asteroids and use it astrologically potent ways, right? So they're actually using this stuff in their own astrology, and they tell everybody else that astrology is bad. So,
and isn't it interesting, even monotheism, each form of monotheism will tell you that forming amalgamation of ideas, mixing and bringing together ideas is against their law, but yet they are all amalgamations of ideas.
Sure.
People say that it's because they've been infiltrated, but that seems like a cover story for me. It seems like the entire history of the world is institutions infiltrating mankind, and not mankind infiltrating institutions.
Developing into that.
Right.
You could look at history as an interplay of institutions versus individuals. In fact, all of history could be kind of encapsulated into or viewed with that window anyway.
And the Vatican has one of the best departments of astronomy in the world because they have the money, they have the equipment, they have a sect of priests to their job.
They run the calendar.
It's that they have astronomical observatories, they have huge telescopes, they have a department just for the extraterrestrial life research. And I have one of the priests on tape on one of my old documentaries, and the guy is asking him, okay, but doesn't this contradict that God created this for us? And he says, no, this is just show us that we are all part of the creation of our God. So we are looking to find other places, other planets, other people, because they are all parts. They are all sons of God. The scriptures were written for us, but it's the same God that created all of this for all of the creatures that we can find. Exactly as we find all the creatures on earth, all the creatures of the universe are the product of the same God. And it just confirms and helps us. And he said, yeah, but are the public and the Catholics ready for that kind of ideas? And he said, no. This is all very progressive, and that's why we work in a separate department under the Vatican. But our opinions and our research is not that well known because Catholics are not ready for that kind of evolution in the message that we are not the only sons of God or the chosen ones, and so on and so forth.
Well, this could be why we're not contacted by aliens, is because they view us as a cultural contagion, and we might actually spread if they talk to us. So you better not, because
a humorous anecdote to that is a UFO enthusiast endorsing certain police or militaristic actions, and then wanting the supposed alien forces to be altruistic with us.
Right.
We are not even altruistic with us.
Right.
So it's like if if we shaped up, there would be a different kind of thing going on, maybe, because you're right. If anything, they would view us as absolute contagion headless. Yeah.
Right. Do you think that they want a Catholic church in their backyard? I don't think that's what the Catholic Church wants.
Holy, yeah, goodness, no.
Or a bunch of women in a burqa. What the hell is that?
Exactly.
Maniacal robots. So it's
It's funny. If you think about borders in those terms, things get really funky really quickly.
you remember the description that Smith gave to Neo about what humans are.
Right.
Humans
was it?
are like a virus. No, not to Neo. He gave it to
Oh, right, yeah.
the black guy that is tied to the chair. I can't remember his name right now. He said humans are like a virus. You come, Morpheus, exactly. You arrive at a place, you consume everything there is to be consumed, you destroy everything that has to be destroyed, and then you move to another place, and then you repeat exactly the same thing. Right? And in a sense, it's exactly true. If you're talking about huge corporations and these huge institutions and so on and so forth, that's what they do. They go to a place, they extract everything they can. That's why Africa is in the state that it is.
They are not free and easy wandering.
Well, they're actually prevented from, using all of those resources. Like there's so much more to be exploited in Africa, but nobody's doing it effectively because that would mean that, you would have to transfer a lot more economic wealth to that continent. And they'd much rather have their own resources shipped out as opposed to losing all of that power advantage by having Africa do it.
They have. My father was in the war in Mozambique, and he said that land can produce 4 crops a year. 4 crops a year, and they are starving. How the hell is that possible? Right? You have the richest country in the world in terms of capability of production, and in minerals, diamonds and gold and everything. They have absolutely everything. They just can't understand each other. But we are the racist, but they can't understand each other. Right? And then there comes all of these forces in and puts them like marionettes against one another by the offering of money and power.
Right.
And creates a place in the world that is unique, unlike any other place in the world. Just think about it. It's unlike any other place in the world. It's an entire continent that they fight amongst each other, right, for a political position that allows them to receive money from the countries that are exploiting what they have.
Yeah.
So it's completely unnecessary. So it's like Obi-Wan saying, "So uncivilized," because it's hard to comprehend.
Well, I mean, look, if we're talking about the deep state and how it is all on one team right now, I mean, we could see that as clear as day right now. There's no difference between Republican, Democrat. They're all playing on the same side. They've all agreed the whole time. It was just always sort of like a game they used to play with us, right? Is which side's going to win, guys? But it never really represented anything. Like, we're coming to that conclusion, but what can we possibly do about it when it comes to this kind of institutional dominance for all these years? Like, everybody thought democracy was real, but turns out never was, guys. They were always playing for the same side, and it wasn't your side. So,
yeah, but they are as they are now because it became ridiculous. So this was seen probably by a few thousand people, and only people that were actually looking for it or passed information to one another. When they changed the government in Angola, obviously the new leadership will want everything that the previous leadership had, including their money and their assets and all of that. And so they made a report that only came out on their television of this fellow that was I don't know how you call it in America, a guy that is the unknown, the visual face of all of these people, and he was the guy that had things in his name because so it isn't in their name. We call it
The mascot, the icon.
we call it an iron head, which means, for instance, I'm a rich guy and I don't want to have things in my name. I pick a guy that has nothing and say, "Oh, I'll give you something.
Like a scapegoat.
This is always mine, but let's put it in your name," right? And so this poor guy was the only one that was attacked by the regime, right? So they found amongst innumerous houses of the utmost luxury, car parks with just like Bugattis, Lamborghinis, Maybachs, beyond explanation, like 1,000 gold watches, 100 top end computers still in their boxes. But what I want to reach this, when they start going further and further, they start finding divisions of the houses with $100 bills to the ceiling. And then they went further and start finding 40-foot containers, hundreds of them filled with $100 bills to the ceiling. So the money reached to a point they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know what to do with it. They couldn't spend it fast enough. So much money. They found endless containers full of cash to the brim because they didn't know what to do with it. And they cannot go into an international bank and present all that because of the new rules against terrorism, right? So even if they are in top echelons, they can't do that because they are not high enough in these top echelons. The amounts of money become absolutely ridiculous. Beyond, I don't want to sound, I just want to say that they didn't know very much how to spend the money in the beginning because the people that are placed in these positions of power, especially in Angola and in the previous regime, they barely knew how to write and read. They were just people that came from the family that supported the party and they are very close to that, and only those people can obtain positions of power, and they come from indigent to general, like that, just because their party won. So it's you're indigent and you are a general. And these generals receive money for when you own a piece of art, you receive money for it. How you call that?
Royalties.
Royalties. So they receive royalties for the oil, for the diamonds, for this, for that. They keep receiving from the big countries that are exploring these things royalties for them to accept that being done without the people getting the benefits from that. So these people got so much money. That's why the Angola collapsed. When they finally found out that these people were not doing anything with the money, they were just keeping it because they couldn't spend it fast enough. They had private jets. They go to expensive countries and buy entire shops, but that's not enough because it's so much money. It's impossible to spend it. And they accumulated and accumulated and accumulated to the point where it worth nothing. So now Angola is forbidden to use the dollar. They only are using their money, and their money is so devaluated that people lost fortunes. People that were rich now have nothing because of what the countries, including America, did to censor them because of this excess. They did absolutely nothing but to spend money on their own and accumulated it.
I got a short about Angola. It said the history of the shocking rituals of the Malawa tribe. This is also Angola.
This brief history of Angola. In the 15th century, the Portuguese arrived, and just like that, these two countries became entwined in a 400-year-long toxic relationship. The Portuguese turned Angola into one of Africa's major sources for the transatlantic slave trade. Over 4 million Angolans were shipped on boats, mostly to Brazil, to be forced to work on sugar, cotton, coffee, and tobacco plantations. In 1975, Angola finally had enough of being exploited by Europeans, and 3 different liberation movements started brawling for power. In the meantime, the Cold War was in full swing. The US and Soviet Russia picked sides in this Angolan fight for independence, leading to a
Portugal in
bloody
the middle.
27-year civil war by proxy. In 2002, this all ended, and the Russian-backed party won. The total cost of life is estimated to be around 1 million. Wait until you hear this brief.
Wow. So,
And this is
Yeah.
Portuguese history, because from one side they were receiving material from the Russians, the other side was receiving material from the Americans, and it was a battle that couldn't be won because they
Right.
just go into the wild.
it was never meant to be won. It was just meant to be fought. They just wanted
There's
to keep killing each other, and that's all they wanted. As long as people are killing each other, they don't have to worry about them, kind of rising up to stop any of the exploitation.
But the
And
problem
in a
is,
certain sense, as long as they're burning through weaponry and
but the evil was done. The evil was done by the Portuguese in this sense that, and this is will be highly debated by some Portuguese, especially the soldiers that were fighting like my father. That is, by changing their ways of life, and this is nothing to do with slavery because that's older. This has to do with giving them buildings, creating cities, infrastructures, taking them from the fields and the huts and the way of living that they had. They never fit into the city. And so they kept living in the city as they lived in the wilderness.
Right.
And as soon as the Portuguese came out, the maintenance stopped being done
Right. They don't have the word for it.
because they didn't consider it to be theirs. But they still live in that. And it's because they couldn't go back to the wild again. So they were utterly destroyed in terms of culture and habits because they no longer belong, because several generations have passed. They no longer belonged into the wild, into the huts, and they didn't belong into the city to what they couldn't adapt. The trash, right? The trash, and I'm not criticizing, this could be whites, blacks, yellows, whatever you want to call it. Because they didn't know what to do. They were creating chickens in bathtubs. The trash was being sent through the corridor or in the middle of the stairs until it reached the 5th floor. Because there is no civic behavior or understanding that there has to be a system to collect the garbage. It doesn't exist. So why did you put it on the street? You just throw it from wherever floor you are. You throw it through the middle of the stairs. And there it lay, smelling and rotting and so on and so forth. They had no notion how to live in a city.
Yeah.
They were. This is what destroyed them, in my perspective. It's not the war; it's the fact that we gave them cities and infrastructures and schools, and they were not ready for that, and they never got used to it.
Well, that actually, if you guys want to watch a documentary about the decolonialization of Africa, there's a great documentary called Africa Adios. And it's done by these Italian guys who were there during the 1970s, watching as these different African cities are being, retaken over by all of these warlords, right? And so even if they did know what to do with all the trash, the warlords would probably kill the trash men because they're not getting their cut. They're not getting enough.
Exactly.
So it's just compounding issue after compounding issue. And a lot of people don't, know, but that's why Africa is kind of the situation it is today. It's just
in Angola, you have in the same family people that were for the Frelimo and people that were for the UNITA. If one of those wins, they will kill each other. It doesn't matter if you're my family, you don't belong to my party. So you are a threat to me because you will be wanting to take my power because I won. Right? So even within the same family, these people would kill one another. This has nothing to do with the white man. Has to do with the struggles of power within themselves. and it's all for a matter of the very few don't give a shit about the huge majority that live in terrible conditions when they have money to make everybody rich. Right? It's unbelievable. It's not that it doesn't happen in other countries. In there is very clear because it's 0.0000000 whatever you go one, and all of the population lives in dire situations. Now you
It,
have businesses and banks and all of that stuff and people working on banks that have the medium life, but they are constantly threatened by the huge majority that still lives from the garbage. Right?
and over history and the present, we can say that whether they call themselves Republican or communist or some form or another in between or a variation outside of, it's all oligarchical collectivism, but at different steepness, right? Like you pointed out, the 0.1% or whatever it may be, that's super steep. Sometimes it's less steep, but what we should do is try to flatten it to make it
Yeah.
fair, and so it's
All
all
right,
it's
guys.
all
The crew faced gunfire, including near execution during filming. One scene shows the aftermath of Zanzibar's 1964 genocide, where thousands of Arab civilians were executed. Captives marched to firing squads, bodies were photographed from helicopters, and some even washed ashore while trying to escape. It's the only known footage of that massacre. Another confirmed scene is in the Congo, showing Belgian paratroopers retaking Stanleyville after rebels murdered and cannibalized enemies, burned children alive, and executed civilians. Survivors were forced to bury smoldering bodies, and one rebel execution was filmed, leading to director Jacopetti's arrest in Italy. He was cleared after proving they arrived moments before the execution and that they weren't involved. The film also includes animals killed by grenades, poachers slaughtering wildlife, and refugees forced into deadly waters. It ends with stranded penguins in South Africa, a metaphor for displacement, but the violence was real. It defined the shockumentary genre from there on out. It captured chaos over 3 dangerous years.
Right. So that's Africa Adios sort of summed up. And it's it's crazy.
It's
But
a
all of
Dios from
what
the
is-
Latin to God, or is from goodbye? Because a Deus means goodbye. That's why I'm
both.
okay.
Both. Because this was the end of the colonial period. They were just documentary filmmakers going around watching the Dutch, watching the British, watching all these places leave, and the resulting chaos that came from it.
Well, I always defended that we had no business in going to Africa and change them. And I believe that if we hadn't gone to there, any of these countries gone to there, they would still be living in the same ways, more or less, that they lived before. Probably the shepherds would have a cell phone by now, but they will still be living on the same conditions.
Pretty much. I mean,
And
look,
better for it.
they're all coming here, so find out. But that's kind of the condition that we're kind of left with is you can't make it better, so they got to come here, I guess. So
So what you need is to open a daycare. That's what you need.
right, in a lot of ways, once they decolonialized, it brought the institutions home too. So more or less, you want to keep your institutions away from home so that they're not bothering you. And so when they're colonializing, that they got their hands full, right? So go put the governments over, in some sort of arena together so that they can all fight each other, right? And then they can leave us alone, right? Maybe what we could do is we could have all the congresses of the world go down to Antarctica and then like govern from there, right? We could just make a big ice wall around them and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. I think that would be the best case scenario, right?
With or without heating.
They can all fight over Antarctica for the rest of the time, and we don't have to hear about it.
Sure. Look, in terms of war, I don't know how many of tribes or peoples or cultures have this system, but I very much admire the system where if two communities or two cultures wanted to declare war to one another, it's the chiefs that go and fight in a circle. Whoever wins gets the rest of the people, right? And I think that's much fairer than send other people's sons and daughters into battle after teach them to be little machines as much as possible. Some of them never come back of that psychological thing. Why don't they go themselves?
One could
Why
deduce
don't they put? Why I'm saying open an arena, go to a UFC, the most viewed UFC ever. Put Putin and Zelensky in the same ring, right? And let's set it out for once and for all. Let's end the shedding of life and uncertainty.
There were ancient times and ancient communities that did this in times past. Look how far we've come as far as sinking of our morality. Before World War I, wars were not fought against cities. There were raids and so forth, but for a while there, they would line up and shoot each other. Now, I'm not saying one is smarter than the other, but they did not necessarily blow up cities. I mean, their capability wasn't there. They definitely burned them down, but there were different approaches. And even World War I actually was kind of the beginning and end of this, where cities were destroyed because a lot of the fighting was on the front lines and restricted to it. And then World War II, now they're literally bombing cities as a form of engagement. And now people are actually attacking the most innocent of innocents as a form of attack through terrorism and so forth. And these destruction of cities and communities is typical and accepted. So we've look at how far we've come to where we would have maybe not even the leaders, but like two of the best fighters engage, and then all right, yeah,
of course, your champion.
There.
Choose your champion.
What
are the Olympics? What are the Olympics? The Olympics were a demonstration of the area's power. That's why we don't send the worst guy there. You send the best guy there to represent you. And today is just a charade.
Right.
Today is just a charade.
You can really track the honor or dishonor of a society in the fact that a society has dueling or not. A society without dueling generally has no shame and no honor.
Wow. And gosh, that's something that's been on my mind recently, is how little honor there is in the world, which is derivative of honesty, right? Like you could be honest, maybe, but are you honorable? Like that's another level. Like that's a great point of this, because people need to take responsibility for their actions, right? And having that type of form of engagements means that someone could call you out, which I suppose that does happen more in the urban environments acceptable.
We are so civilized.
When what you say becomes a matter of life and death, you're a little bit more aware about what you say.
Exactly. Let's bring duels back.
Or how you act, even worse, right?
Take the gloves off. Take anything that could kill you, because we are now civilized. But allow a few punch to be thrown and a few bruises and cutters, and the first to fall down to the ground loses. Right? We don't need to kill each other.
Who would be dueled against would be the politicians. That's why politicians, judges, they'd all be challenged immediately. And since they have no honor, you better believe they're not going to be dueling anybody. And they don't want to look weak either. The people who do duel get into those positions of power.
We need politicians like those that I haven't seen it for long, but I stopped watching television many years ago. But weren't that a country in Asia where the parliaments sometimes break off in a huge fights among the people? I can't remember if South Korea or something like that. That one guy gets mad and starts punching the other guy.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, go for it. We even paid to watch that shit.
You don't want them agreeing. When
now
you're getting fucked. When they're fighting each other, that's when things are good in your country.
And I would suggest there is a lot of truth in that, and I would suggest even more so too that there's truth in this. This is not necessarily the truth, but when people are not even allowed to like talk smack to each other, that makes people incredibly weak and actually unprepared for civil discourse, social interactions. Right, like now like kids are really we all are really just soft to where we don't even accept smack talking. Well, and that's kind of like running yourself through the crucible. Like, you don't even become self-aware until someone says, hey, you don't even tie your shoes.
Yeah, Ethan,
Oh,
and because of that, I have a question for you. I have a question for you that I'm sure you won't be able to answer because of your beliefs. Is, can a man become pregnant?
Of course not. I think I've said this before. I think you're mocking me for it, but I don't like to believe anything, right? I like to know a thing or not, right? And because that's what messes people up, especially perfect depiction. If you believe it,
Duality
not
and
knowing.
opposites. Yeah, but I've said this a few times already since that happened, and is if you are a male and if you are pregnant, then you are a seahorse, not a human, for sure.
Yeah,
It's the only males that I know. It might be more, but it's the only males that I know that are the ones that gestate.
really shouldn't be an issue.
Infant.
It's so surprising that it's an issue. It's so dumbed down of a discourse, right? And to the belief in knowing. What?
We got breaking news. Let me
No way.
get over there. Yeah,
A man became pregnant.
Yeah, men are becoming pregnant. Pregnant men. No, this is even worse.
Oh God.
She's not anti-Semitic. She doesn't even understand the conflict.
It's alleged Serena sent a text to Mandy, writing, "Hey, how are you? Is this Mandy? I saw somewhere that you helped Katie from Married at First Sight with her nutrition. I was wondering if you could help me as well, Serena." Around 5 hours later, a call from Serena's number went to Mandy's voicemail. No voices were heard on the recording, but Mandy claims she heard sounds she believed were gunshots, causing her immediate fear and nervousness.
Oh no!
She's not anti-Semitic. She doesn't even understand the conflict.
It's alleged Serena sent a text to Mandy, writing, "Hey, how are you? Is this Mandy? I saw somewhere that you helped Katie from Married at First Sight with her nutrition. I was wondering if you could help me as well, Serena." Around 5 hours later, a call from Serena's number went to Mandy's voicemail.
There's more to the story. There's more to the story. So basically, this was a completely empty voicemail. There's nothing in it. No voices were heard. It was a butt dial. And she got arrested for anti-Semitism.
Oh God.
Literally
because she was silenced.
There was no voices whatsoever. The lady on the other end interpreted sounds in the background from a butt dial as gunshots.
Wow.
And now this lady is on trial for an empty voicemail butt dial.
But are the judges laughing while they're doing this?
They are deadly serious. This is deadly serious stuff. And you know what? These judges have never been in a fight in their goddamn lives, and it shows. If they're willing to do this kind of thing, they've never been punched in the face.
Yeah.
Somebody who's been punched in the face is not willing to do that.
How old is the judge that is
never been punched in the face?
How old is he or her?
Do they ever talk about the judges on any of these trials? No. They never talk about the judges taking these cases. They never talk about the prosecutors. They never talk about any of those people.
But that is the thing. That is what's wrong with society. It's not the government. It's not the laws. Is the fact that being a complete moron, having the intellectual capacity of a fence post, and doesn't even understanding what is air
close to
is natural. To be deranged is completely natural. I said this yesterday. I saw a new competition where people, I can't believe this is real. People are with dog leashes in their hands doing competition of dogs without the dogs, and so it's the guy and the woman that is going up and down the ramps and going through the
Nice.
poles with the dog leash in the hand, and they are looking at the dog leash and say, let's go up. This is not natural, folks. We need to slow down. I don't know what pills people are in, and because this is not natural.
Very deranged and perverted
This
society.
is very serious. The derangement that includes men getting pregnant, that includes identifying as a dog and being and driving at the same time, which is, if you identify as a dog, don't drive, please, right? Because dogs can't be driving. And
True.
these new types of competitions, the behaviors that we are accepting, bathrooms where men can go in, where there are children inside, putting men in women categories in competitions, even in the Olympics, the destruction of all the millions of followers, like uh, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, now Star Trek.
Right.
Uh,
Not now. It's been like this for quite a while when it comes to Star Trek.
yeah, but yes, since the movies, since the new movies, yes. But now it's appalling. Now we had an intimacy counseling session done on the series itself.
Oh. Do you know what we're talking about, Ethan?
What, the people are so obsessed with Star Wars that their
No, Star
fantasy
Trek.
fiction-
Star Trek has a new show called what is it? Star Trek
Academy.
Right.
Okay.
And so they've got this woke cast that are engaging in this sort of pronoun
It's
session.
brand new. It's brand new then.
Right. They're doing a pronoun session at the academy, and they're like, we're reimagining what it's like to be warriors. It's so obviously like rage bait. Like people, the only reason they're putting these out is to get people upset because nobody asked for this. Nobody asked for this.
Look, how many millions follow Star Trek? There are millions of people into Star Trek. They offered the first episode on YouTube for free, right? Because you have to pay to watch this.
Right.
So they offered the first episode for free. You know how many people watched it?
Like two?
1,300.
Oh,
It was supposed to be a thing with millions of views.
right.
It had 1,300. And I'm sure if they go and look, the attention span of those 1,300s is after 2 minutes. What am I looking at? Right?
Well,
They are using glasses. There's people that need glasses in Star Trek now.
Right.
Right? And the leadership is all not by women, because Star Trek always had strong women, is by feminists that hate men, right? And they made them so that we understand immediately that they are fat, ugly, and lesbian.
And who is, whenever there's a couple presented on sitcoms and in television more broadly, who tends to be the smarter and who tends to be the doofus of the couple?
Well, it's always the woman is the smart one. And
practically always. And the man may not be a doofus, but sometimes that's the part of the dynamic, actually. Like the comedy of it, all these.
The first time I started noticing this is we had family shows like Alf, and I don't know if Alf streamed on the Americas.
Sure.
But we had family shows where the families were a representation of a normal family anywhere. And then suddenly you start seeing cartoons and series where the man, the father of the house, was always the goofy one, was always the idiot. It was always the woman and the child that knew exactly what's going on and and were intelligent. The father was just the comic relief of this series. So this social engineering has been happening for a long time, but now it looks like they are only employing writers that are proven suffering from dementia.
Right. That's one of the requirements now.
Right? They to do the Rings of Power, they spend, you can look for this because I know this is true. They spend on each episode to produce that crap the same money that Peter Jackson used to make the 3 movies.
What?
Per episode.
Wow.
Each episode costs as much as the 3 movies of Peter Jackson. Each
Jeez.
episode. So this is no longer about money because they are losing money constantly. This is just a minority being pushed forward to try and change, which they have failed so far, luckily, to change society. However, there are consequences because you go and see these interviews done in universities, open spaces, and they start asking questions to these people, and these people are not right in the head. And they are fearful to respond some answers. For instance, this one, can a man get pregnant? Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Oh, of course it can. Right? This delusion is being propagated through the young, which is very serious. When it
Each
ends,
episode of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, cost $58 to $60 million.
Well, to build on your point, not to refute it, but just remember that when someone loses money, someone wins it too, right? So someone got paid off. Someone made a lot of money, even though they're saying this lost this. One other group or groups of individuals and companies, they made that money, right?
What's the common denominator? It's these streaming services are putting out garbage, and we're supporting it. Why are we paying for streaming services? Guys, get off of them. Don't buy this crap. That's what you're supporting.
Sure. No.
Who's doing that? Stop buying it.
and that's why I can't wait. I can't do it right now, but I will do it, I hope, this year. I can't wait to create a TV channel. It will be the Institute TV channel. I've tried it a few months back, and Nick from Occult Rejects was a part of it at the beginning. He was trying to organize things on the software, but it's demanding and it's complicated,
Right.
and new things has come out since then, and I think that's the future. I think the future is for these people to have these interests and these communities. We have to start representing ourselves and bring others exactly like the others do. They attract one another into their groups and so on and so forth. And I think we need that kind of exposition. So I think, for instance, what the Wandering Wolf is doing and creating the music channel, separating the lives, creating channels specific for this and that. I think that's the way to move forward, is to start creating these brands with these groups, with these people that we know that are good at what they do. They have information to say. They can produce good content. And with the AI that we freely can access today, we can create products as the same quality as any broadcast. So we have to put our hands into it and stop depending on what others are creating, because we can see that what they are creating is not for our entertainment. It's for the 0.11 or 0.0001% to look at.
Right. Like, who the hell are they representing here? Like, all of these things have to be, checked. All of these boxes have to be checked. But who the hell gave them the boxes to begin with? Clearly, they're not representing very many people because it doesn't have a mass appeal. $58 million per episode. You don't think somebody's in there saying exactly what needs to happen on these things? Of course they are. It's just,
how many good movies we could make with 60 million?
One season cost over $400 million. I want you to look at that again. Look, one season was $400 million. 465 million right here.
And depending on the studio,
this is just production without the promotion. Promotion will put another 200 on top of that.
a lot of that money is being invested by investors, right? So like the producers and the studio, possibly in this case, but largely in other cases, they don't care. Like someone lost that money that was either a sucker or it was like a nudge nudge wink wink favor, like, yeah, I'm gonna lose this, but actually they're paying their homies,
Right.
you know.
Clearly, we haven't investigated enough because there is nothing.
Oh, the
they
film
are
companies,
producing. Right.
oh yeah.
Look,
Film
and
industry.
AI is moving so fast in terms of production good content. If the little I know, and in sites that do it for free or for $5 a month, can create things that we look at and say, well, this is actually pretty good. It's only 6 or 8 seconds or 10 seconds, but it's actually pretty good. I would take a year to do this 8 seconds
Right.
some 10 years ago by myself. And I would need lots of equipment and this and that, and I need people to do it, and so on and so forth. So how long will it take for the whole Hollywood system and Bollywood is already making movies fully AI, for instance. They have now 10% of acting and 90% of AI in certain studios. They're way ahead. And the Asians are going to follow that trend. Hollywood is stubborn to say the value of the actors and so on and so forth, and keeping these groups of this faggots and these people just writing and doing these performances that serve no one but themselves in their little tiny groups where they smell their own assholes.
Right.
But so
That's what the nature of the institution is, right? It eventually thinks of itself as everybody else, right? And so whatever's happening on the inside of the institution eventually comes out in the form of this garbage because it thinks of itself as everybody else, but it's clearly not.
And its functions become more important that what their intention was in the beginning. Like, I hate to say it, but like the DHS was formed after 9/11, right? And now it's on the streets of urban environments. Like, wait, what? How'd that trend go from like like?
Well, we can track exactly it. And isn't it funny on X when they started giving away everybody's IP addresses, that the IP address for the account that was created for Homeland Security was created in Israel. So DHS was created in Israel.
And that goes to the overt fact too, that how many police forces and likely federal military too has been trained by Israel, tactics, right? None of it necessarily as effective on U.S. streets that aren't under oppression like the Palestinians are. It's like, but I mean, maybe that's what we all are.
What they want to do. They want to bring it here, and now it's on the streets.
So explain this to me. We have 9/11, then we have the incidents in England, and then we are completely closed and turn our eyes to look for everyone that is an extremist or is a Muslim, to the point that the public opinion saw a Muslim and immediately think that guy might be a terrorist, right? We were so brainwashed immediately by the terror that we start judging everybody just because they were worshiping something Islamic, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, very slowly but surely, they are allowing all of these people into every single country.
Right.
Bringing masses of them, caring nothing for who they are. Oh, they are coming, they are needy. Let's bring them all in. Let's give them houses and subsidies, and let's let them make companies and build businesses where they only employ their own and do nothing for the country because they are exempt of paying taxes because they have this. So they do absolutely nothing,
right,
for the country. And those that are already here or there or whatever were already producing business, giving employees to people of the nation. It's almost
like they asked how can we screw everybody?
There- we haven't screwed enough people yet. We need to bring more here.
Well,
So isn't,
yeah, like
isn't it completely
everyone.
against? Isn't it completely against those ideas of anti-terrorism control and
Well, I think a lot of the reasoning for those specific countries that were part of what they call the war on terror, which was just a whole rip-off unto itself, which again,
weapons of mass destruction?
they probably asked, how can we screw everybody? Right?
Right.
The US people and the people that are fighting with us and the people that we're fighting against, most certainly, of course. But after these engagements, then they bring in people from those places because they were, screwed and or participants on our side, right? A lot of it is from that.
Right. A lot of the Vietnamese came here after the Vietnam conflict.
Exactly.
Same thing. And now we've got wars in 7 different countries. Yeah.
But we are very advanced.
Sure.
We are.
I thought he got a peace prize.
Well,
But look at this. Now we are so advanced, we can have wars in countries. And people keep streaming and being an influencer and whatever it is from the country that is supposed under heavy bombardment.
right.
Right? Because I'm not criticizing, and I know that Ethan has strong feelings about this, and I'm not taking any part. I'm just saying that I never saw a country in war with so many people represented online like Ukraine. And they're living their lives as nothing is going on.
Right.
So it's very complicated to understand how they seem to be very happy and content in their lives, showing us on camera everything that they're doing in a country that is supposedly under.
I can tell you why.
This happens all throughout history. This happens all throughout history, that there's places that are under the war and places that are not. And there's also people that are not fighting and people that are. And to that point, there's elitists that will never fight and people that are. The poor people are certainly the ones up front in a general mannerism. So I would suggest that this does happen. Like with the U.S. war in Afghanistan and Iraq and so forth. People, it was made to not even affect.
That's when we started to have televised wars.
Sure. And now Ukraine, not only is it the most televised and web oriented with videos, they literally have cameras on their weapons systems. So like there used to be just artillery shells and so forth. Now it's partly the most filmed war because the most effective weapon, the drone systems, are made with cameras. They can only function with cameras. To the point on the front, which is the opposite dynamic as you brought up with people living their lives and so forth.
Oh, by the way, have you seen remember last week we talked about self-driving vehicles? And I sent you that clip of the Chinese delivery self-driven truck. It doesn't care where it goes. As long as it's not going over a person, it will try and cross everything. Like recently cemented areas, going through the cement when people stop. What are you doing?
I think Headless, you brought up the question to Ashish of how does it tell a cat from a plastic bag, right? And so it seems like what you're saying, Ricardo, is it doesn't.
The paper bag doesn't make a sound when it goes over it.
Right.
You know what's the difference between falling from the 5th floor and from the 1st floor?
A lot.
It's very simple. If you fall from the 1st floor, you do boom, aye! And if you fall from the 5th floor, you do aye, boom.
Definitely.
Then that's the difference. So in here, it's differentiating the cat by the sound it makes when it goes over it. So it's already too late, but at least you know, oh, that was a cat. So
Right.
and so it just doesn't care. In that regard, we are trying to go way ahead of what the fight for supremacy in this technology is so huge that they are going ahead and beyond their own abilities to actually be doing such a thing, right? Like this new, who is going to buy this new Kawasaki horse? Have you seen the Kawasaki horse?
I've
So
not.
it's, instead of a motorcycle, we return to quadruple means of locomotion. You can look up Kawasaki horse so people can see it. They're going to actually, they already accepted for production, and they are going to, we see the final product in next year, and will be, you've already seen it, but fully functional, and you'll start selling in 2030.
Wait, a
And
robotic horse? Is this what you're saying?
it's a robotic horse with 4 legs that can take you up
Who
mountains
would
and
that?
can do like a
Wow.
goat and go through rocks and
Okay.
do things that a motorcycle, even if it is
Gotcha.
a dirt bike, wouldn't be able to do, because this is going to be crawling. But
Sounds horrible.
how do we keep a human on top of that thing?
Yeah, it just sounds
Because
horrible.
it's jumping and going through rocks and
Well, no,
that's,
but it would have an engagement system that would keep the human level, I bet, in ways that a horse necessarily wouldn't look out for that. A gyroscopic waist that could be lowered and heightened to keep their.
it's literally a bull, like the bull that starts turning around and throws you away. It's exactly the same thing as it's going to happen.
No, robotics is going to be so overpowering of our society. In
This
the
is
next
not the
couple of
trailer from Kawasaki, Headless. They have a
This is
trailer with it being used. But move ahead in the video. Might be there.
It's got 4 legs like a horse. It moves like it's alive.
years. I would never want to do that.
Hmm.
And yes,
There it is.
you actually ride it.
Oh, but that's
Yeah.
This is the Kawasaki Corleo. And it's probably the weirdest, coolest, most what am I looking at
No, you're
machine you'll
good.
see all
That
week.
shit would kill you.
They're calling it a robot, a bike, a mechanical horse from the future. I call it ridiculously awesome.
Well, the guy's almost off of it.
Ridiculously
Wait.
awesome.
A robot bike that walks? Let's get one thing straight. This thing doesn't have wheels, no tires, no spokes, no burnout smoke. Instead, it walks.
looks like it's off
Like
the eye. I
literally
see it.
walks.
Yeah, sure. It's
Like
all
moves
yeah.
on its own. Like it's thinking. It's got rubber hooves for grip, balance, and control on all kinds of terrain.
I mean, maybe, but I don't see him producing it. Like putting a
No,
person on.
it's already been PR'd.
It
They're
might
going to
be,
produce it.
just as like at one point we were talking about copper transition to iron, like it might be becoming so simple to make robots in the near future that it's like the new iron.
The
in that-
two-wheel scooters are already a menace in the cities because they can go up to 40 kilometers an hour. like
I'm
25
paranoid
miles
of the self-driven cars in cities for sure.
No, but
That's-
the scooters, we can't hear them, and this guy's coming at a
Well,
huge
right,
speed
but at least that's controlled by a human.
to a certain point, right?
I
Because
don't,
it
I
didn't
don't
have
trust
brakes.
all humans. I'm just saying I trust a human over.
No, imagine people starting using this kind of mechanics to go on the sidewalk or just go to the work in style, because I always dreamed to be a cowboy or something like that, right? And it's a novelty. You want to be different. It's the chaos. It's absolute chaos, right?
Oh no, that would be so. That would be ridiculed.
That's a future I want to be a part of. I don't give a shit. That's a future I want to be a part of. But who knows? I mean, I don't know.
Galloping in an electrical vehicle to job on the highway at 40 miles an hour.
I'm here for it. If they can do it, I'm here for it. Let's go.
It looks like it would just kill you. Like you get on high speed on that thing, and you're just getting. It's gonna try to gyroscopically keep you on, but you're just gonna fly off. Like the AI, like how could it's? They talk about how AI could be dangerous, and I guess there's this ways like AI with a robot, AI with a drone, or all these things. But like, what if AI just controls your music? And you're in a bad mood and it puts on that song that you hate and it makes you drive more aggressively and like there's all these subtle things.
It's on you. if you drive more aggressively because
You don't even notice it.
music.
You don't even notice it.
Notice it.
You don't even notice how like AI might be influencing
Yeah,
potentially.
but AI is no longer something we can stop. It's only
No,
something
not
we can
saying no.
embrace. And if we go back to movies like the movie called AI with Will Smith, right? No, that's not the one. What's the one with the multiple robots that look like the Tesla robot with Will Smith? What's the name of it?
I'm not sure.
Is it AI? I can't remember if it is AI.
I forget. I know what you're talking about. Will Smith with the army of robots. I
Yeah.
forget. Well,
It's not
you're
an
right.
army. Well, so this company managed to create what has been just done.
AI robot. Some true series.
Yeah, iRobot, exactly. That's the name of the movie. They can implant a kind of a brain tissue as a processing unit. And that spreads into a multiple set of robots that don't have that in them, but they are controlled by that hub that can, like a super mega hypercomputer. So the problem is not the robots, because the robots are doing a good job. They are keeping elderly company. They're going to do their groceries. They're helping them, or blind people go about the street. They are a fountain of information of everyone you know. They are helping children with the homework, and so on and so forth. They're helping creativity. The problem is somewhere, somehow, someone decided that it can be used to control people. So the system, the program of the robots is changed, very much like the Order 66 from from Darth Sidious or Emperor Palpatine, that
Well-
turns all the Star Troopers into killers of Jedi's.
Right. As soon as they introduce the robots, somebody's going to be committing crime with robots. I mean, it's not like there's ever been a law that's governed robots. Like all of that stuff comes from sci-fi. Those things don't actually exist. So as soon as you introduce the robots into society, you're going to have robots committing crime. Or other
Because
people.
someone will program to do that.
Right. So, I mean, any idea that you have that you won't be hunted or killed by robots is out the window. When you think about
He didn't like that one.
right,
No, I just
the very first thing it's
I
going
only
to
can
do
laugh. I only can laugh.
is going to be a robot with a gun pointing it in your face, telling you to give me your money. Because why not?
Well, I would like to have a sparring robot, like the ones that they are creating to teach, to be able to spar martial arts and so on and so forth.
Well,
The problem
the thing
is-
about them is that they are capable of mechanical movements that would just destroy anyone.
Right.
They're making them
Very-
more fragile, obviously, so that they cannot rip your head off your body, right?
Again,
Oh,
you're not
you're right
thinking
about
about
that.
crime. You could have one of these things outfitted in such a way, because you've got the raw software now. You can just put it into a spider robot, right? You can just put it into something that is going to
Alita. That's Alita.
I would
right.
point out that the more immediate and present danger actually is, you know what, they've integrated AI with security cameras, and people have already had police interactions because the AI thought their bag of Cheetos was a gun.
Right.
Look.
So that they're presently using AI, and it's hurting.
One of the main companies of security in Portugal, that is called Securitas, they promoted and lowered the price so everyone could install security cameras inside the house. They control the outside, but mainly they are focusing the inside the house to
And
prevent
there's
an injury.
several countries in the United States that do provide a similar service.
And the advertisement is the cameras know the difference between your dog and your cat and a burglar.
No,
And that's the advertisement. That's what led people to say, because they didn't want the alarm constantly off because they have a dog or a cat going in the house. So the AI could.
And spooky.
Yeah, so they spend an evening into your house programming the system so that it knows what you have in the house. Which means the day that you buy the second dog and forgot to call the company, you'll have the police on you because it doesn't recognize that it's a dog, right? Or a cat. But people are going into this stuff. because
Insane.
it sounds good to have a system that protects your house when you're not there and can recognize the burglar, and it contacts directly the police. You don't have to do anything, right?
Sure, just that context sounds
So,
good.
did Jesus have a belly button? That's an excellent question. I don't know if that's in the scriptures. Well, you say yes? Okay. Well, he's born from Mary, so probably he
If he
has.
was born from Mary, you could presume.
Unless Mary was a tridactyl and he came out of an egg.
The tridactyls don't have belly buttons.
No.
So interesting. Well, guys, we are at 2 hours and 20 minutes. Thank you guys for joining us. This is a big show, so thank you guys, and we'll see you again next time on
Good as
Trialoge.
always.
And we didn't even talk about topics, but usually we have topics, and we just went around on the same stuff again. So thank you guys for watching.
Thank you all.
Next time.